The conscious man. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. What is a conscious man?
What's up, bro?
Giddy up.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to another episode of the conscious man. Today we've got my bro, Chandlar Sheleby. And we've known each other for what, like a year?
Yeah, coming up on a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met at the Lake Powell trip last year with Keaton and Ryan and the whole family. That's when I met you.
Yeah. Was that your first day as Keaton's videographer?
That was like my second week, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, dude, I remember like when I met you and you asked me to like hold the camera for you and I was like, this dude's chill.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. No, we instantly clicked, and then I got your phone number from that trip, and we stayed in contact since, and now it's almost been a year, and now you
Now
got
we're
me
fucking
on.
Boys.
Exactly, and thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
for coming on, bro. Appreciate you. You've lived like such an interesting life, and like the reason I brought you on is just because like you're so young, you know, and we've had a lot of talks about this, but like you're so young, and your level of awareness, I think, is unmatched by a lot of guys your age. And you know, we've had a lot of like really deep conversations, and I always ask when people come on the podcast, because it's called The Conscious Man, what does it mean to you to be a conscious man?
To me, being a conscious man is, I think it starts with being aware of yourself, who you truly are, and not only aware of that, in touch with that, but also like, you know, having finding a certain amount of self-love for yourself, in order to understand more about who you truly are deep down, I'd say. And also, you know, just being aware of not only yourself, but also your surroundings as well. Being aware of your surroundings.
I like that. You said deeply aware of like who you really are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good way to put it. And one thing that like I've noticed about you, that I've honestly just respected in a huge way is like your awareness of your emotions. You know, and like we've had so many conversations that where you call me and you're feeling a certain way. And it's interesting because I see guys your age, like most of them aren't really even aware of how they're feeling.
Yeah.
You know, which like is kind of like the first step in like, in my opinion, of like really becoming conscious of your shit is like, how am I feeling throughout the day? What's going on in my inner world? You know, and for me, it was like, I didn't really start to become aware of my emotions until I was probably like 30 years old. And, you know, it's an interesting journey when you start to become aware of your emotions, as you well know at this point.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, at first, it can be really difficult, you know, to start to become aware of like all the shit that you're feeling that is maybe attached to ways that you were programmed in the past that are not benefiting you anymore. And, you know, because I'm a big believer that like emotions are signals that point us in a direction, right? And a lot of times like guys will get to a certain point in their life. Usually it's not at 23, 24 years. Are you 23, 24 now?
24. I'll be 25 in October, so just a few months.
Yeah, so usually it's not that young in a man's life where he starts to become aware of these things and these signals that try to point him in a better direction. But yeah, it's usually an interesting journey when a man starts on that. And it's been really cool, honestly, just watching you kind of navigate shit. And luckily we have some really good guys in our group that I think have helped guided you. And also like you've been a huge inspiration to them.
Yeah.
You know, so I just wanted to ask you like tell me a little bit about that journey and how your journey has progressed, like especially the past 2 years.
Yeah, so I would say my spiritual journey really began when I was 18 going on 19, so this would have been 2018. And I was living in a small farm town. I was living on my own. I had a roommate, but I wasn't living at my parents' house. I moved out right as I was 18. And then I was working at this fertilizer plant, like out in the middle of nowhere, basically. And I was working with a bunch of older dudes and kind of in an area in my life where I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I hated school and I wanted to be done with that. And then once I kind of left school early. I got my GED and finished early.
Yeah.
Everyone I went to school with kind of they just kind of disowned me because they thought I was
Really?
just a dropout. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was working 50 hours a week right out of high school, working at this plant, learning good skills like operating machinery and all this stuff, and like also working around older men. That was teaching me a lot of principles right off the bat, just right out of high school, just learning how to be a man. But one thing that I just felt stuck while I was there. I was really down on, in the environment that I was in. There wasn't much going on. There was a lot of people, depressed. There wasn't much to do in the town I lived in. So a lot of people were just like doing stupid stuff, getting in trouble, doing drugs. And I was kind of getting involved in that and was kind of going down the wrong path for the longest time. And I remember living with my roommate at the time, and he was falling into drugs and whatnot. And I was falling into a deep, dark depression. Okay. And so that was I felt like the lowest point of my life at the time, where I didn't know how I was going to proceed on and what I want to do, where I was going to go. I just knew that I hated where I was and the state that I was in. And so I would say pulling myself out of that was probably the very beginning of my journey. And since then, the last 5-6 years since then have been a nonstop journey. Yeah. But that's kind of what kicked it off.
Okay.
I'd say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And where was that at?
So that was over in Hermiston, Oregon.
In Oregon. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then you came to Utah at what point?
So it's kind of a funny story, but I ended up staying in contact with a buddy that I grew up with in that small town, and he ended up leaving, and he was doing all this cool stuff. I remember like traveling. He got into like skydiving, and all of a sudden he was hanging out with rich people, driving in Lamborghinis. And I'm like, dude, how's this guy doing this? Like, I want to go get out of this town and go like do stuff, go do cool stuff. And I maintained the relationship with this guy for a couple years, and he ended up inviting me out with him to go do door-to-door sales with him in Oklahoma, which is halfway across the country.
Yeah.
And I didn't know, I had no sales experience, didn't know what I was doing, but it was a big gamble. I just knew that I was not happy with my situation. And so I put all my stuff in storage, packed everything up, caught a one-way plane ticket, and I sold my truck at the time. I actually had a Jeep. I sold that for some money to get me by for the first couple months.
Sure.
So I kind of went all in and didn't look back. Went out there for the summer and learned a whole new skill and learned how to knock on doors and whatnot. And that summer was the biggest change in my life, I'd say. Let's see, there we go. So that summer, I went out and learned how to do door-to-door sales, and the amount of growth that I got from leaving my hometown, leaving my family, my friends, only knowing one person, flying across the country to learn this new skill, and then out in neighborhoods having to knock on strangers' doors. There was a couple months there where I underwent so much growth that my whole perspective on life completely changed after that. So that was probably the biggest thing. But once I got out of that town, everything just started changing for me.
So where did you go next after you left Oklahoma?
So I went out to Oklahoma, and then we were doing that for a few months. And then my buddy I was working with, he's like, dude, I have this guy in Utah who's doing this other opportunity, which is also really good. And I think we should go out there like as a team and go check it out.
Were you doing well in sales at this point?
I was just finally starting to get the hang of it,
okay,
to the point where I was getting, at least one every other day.
Yeah.
And I was doing alarm sales for ADT. So okay. It was kind of big like 5-6 years ago to go sell alarms. But that's what I started on. And then the next opportunity that came up was he had a buddy over here in Utah that was doing roofing door-to-door sales.
Okay.
And so we came out here to check that out. Ended up staying here the whole summer, and we were bouncing around as a team. Like, we had our manager that would buy us, or he'd book us all these Airbnbs. So we moved like 6-7 times throughout the summer, just all up and down the valley, like staying at different places. So it was kind of hectic, but I just kept on learning how to knock on doors and was surrounded by my buddy who brought me out for the opportunity. And I did that for a while, and then it's an even longer story after that. But basically, there was a lot of ups and downs that eventually led me to move out here to Utah.
So tell us that story. Keep going with it because I want to hear more.
This is a good story because this is where it starts to get crazy because I was committed at this point, right? Because I left my hometown and I would have done anything to not have to go back.
Sure.
So I'm in this opportunity, and my buddy that brought me in was he was kind of training me up and building me up and whatnot, teaching me all the stuff that he knows. And we ended up working for this guy for this roofing opportunity, and we were kind of promised like all of this stuff, like good pay and everything. We just had to like get through this trial phase of like building the company and whatnot. And so come to find out the guy we were working with was pretty sketchy. And so what would happen was we'd go out and sell roofs, and then this guy would go around and collect the checks for the roofs, and then he would like not put their roof on.
Oh fuck.
So
okay.
So we got like people calling us like freaking out and stuff. And so I finally got fed up, and I was like, dude, I need to get out of here because this is scary, and I'm putting all my time and energy into this, and I'm not even getting paid. Like, this guy's kind of screwing us over. It was really shady, and it was kind of making us look bad because we're out there in the neighborhoods talking to people and whatnot. And when you're working for a company that's not reputable, it's not a very good look, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So I left there, ended up going out to Tahoe for a couple seasons. So I found a job with one of my old friends up at a ski resort out of Tahoe. So the roofing opportunity wasn't working out here. So that was around the fall time. And then it was almost going to be winter. So I got this job at a ski resort out in Tahoe. Went out and did the ski bum life kind of for a season. Went out and did that, made a bunch of new friends, had a ton of fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah. So it was cool because I had all my buddies there. We'd all snowboard, and that was when I first got into making videos because we were up on the mountain, and sometimes when we'd get a lot of snow, like they'd close down the mountain, and so it's just us up there.
Oh, cool.
So we'd get the whole mountain to ourselves sometimes, and we're just like tearing up the powder and stuff. So I did that for 2 seasons. After the first season, I went back out with another buddy in Texas to sell alarms again, and did that for a bit. Ended up coming back, did the door-to-door and ski resort for about 2 seasons. And then after that, my buddy I originally hired out with, at this point, he's like, all right, bro, I've been doing the roofing thing for a while. I started my own company. Like, we're legit now. Everything's set up for you, so it's not going to be sketchy. So I gave him another chance, went back out with him again. And then this time I actually was able to make some money doing it, knocking on doors and doing sales and stuff. So I got good experience, learned the skills, and started to make a little bit of money. And then had a falling out with the owner of that company because he was what really happened was he was kind of trying to, micromanage me a little too much and kind of control me and manipulate me. And I was doing all this in the first place to be able to create freedom for myself and like set my own schedule and all these different things. So it'd be funny because we'd snowboard together and stuff, and there'd be days where, he'd go out and snowboard, and then he'd be like, all right, you got to go to work. And I'm like, what do you mean, bro? I want to go snowboarding. And so we had a falling out, and I ended up just going and finding the same job, but with a bigger, more reputable company. And I did that for a year, carried my skills into that, which was good because they had a lot better systems in place to do a lot better at it.
Sure.
So I came into that company and started crushing and was out on my own. I had a camper van for those couple years, so I was doing a lot of traveling and stuff. And my dilemma was I would go and work at the ski resort in the winter, hop in my van, go out and do sales somewhere, and then just kind of camp and, live by the river. and then from there I would just bounce around all these different opportunities. Cool. So at this point I was like, man, I really like it in Salt Lake. I kind of want to, get a place here because I'm tired of sleeping in my van. It's like the summertime. And
so you're just hot. In the van with your dog?
Yeah, just in the van. My dog was actually at my dad's house at the time because I was traveling too much to have him.
Yeah.
So my dog was at my dad's, and then I was just out and about, and then I was like, dude, I need to get like at least an apartment here.
Yeah.
So at that time, I got my own apartment. I had the camper van still, was just taking it on trips on the weekends and then doing the door-to-door stuff. And then I did that all the way up until I met Keaton. And there's a few things I'm leaving out in that journey there, but it was overall, from the time I moved out of my mom's house until now, there's been so many different things along the way that have tested me, and it's been the hardest like 5 years of my life, I would say. But being in this position and being able to look back on that now and seeing like all of the lessons and growth that it brought me going through all those hard times, I feel like ultimately that was what led me here.
Yeah.
Was going through all that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then talk about how you began to work for Keaton, because that's a pretty cool story as well.
Yeah. So
How did you get that job with him?
It's a crazy story, man. I love to tell it. So I was working at that one roofing company for a whole year, and then upgraded to an even better roofing company. At this point, it was like the best one in the state.
Okay.
And they had like work trucks, and they'd give you sales leads and phone and gas card and all this stuff, and it was still good pay and everything. And I upgraded to that job and started crushing at that. I was in it for about 2 or 3 months. And all this whole time since I started at the ski resort, I started creating content.
Okay.
So I started my YouTube channel in 2019 and just started uploading iPhone videos, just that I would edit on iMovie, just on your phone, and
Yeah, sure.
post them up on YouTube. And then upgraded to a GoPro and started doing the same thing, posting YouTube videos. And I always loved making content. And that from this whole journey, my whole goal was to be able to just not have to do the sales anymore and just go out and do content. That's all I wanted to do for the last like 5 years. And so I did it for fun. And also, as I was doing it for fun, I was kind of building a little bit of a portfolio up.
Yeah.
And I like to post and all that. So fast forward, I was watching one of Keaton's YouTube videos with my roommate at our house, and I remember seeing like it was a video that they were like messing around, saying his house was gonna slide off the mountain or something.
Sure.
And so I remember recognizing his house. Like a couple weeks later, I was driving to work, and I seen his house up on the hill, and I was like, man, that's sick. Like that guy's got a dope place. And I just remember thinking, I was driving in the truck by myself, had my music on, and I was in kind of a flow state, and I remember looking up at his house and saying to myself, like, I want to meet that guy one day. Or it was kind of like, I see you up there on the hill, you know, like I want to be up there on the hill too one day.
Sure.
Whatever it's going to take. And a couple weeks later, one of my buddies I grew up with in Oregon, he messages me, shout out to Cody, and he's like, bro, this guy's looking for a videographer. You should hit him up. And I was like, okay. So I had my portfolio I had built on my Instagram page. So I had a bunch of cool reels on there and whatnot. And I just was driving to work and thought of like a really good like sales pitch, because I know on Instagram I had to be like very, systematic about how I wanted to reach out to him.
Sure.
Because I knew that he would have thousands of people hitting him up.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stick out right off the bat. And so I know on Instagram DMs, when someone messages you, you can see like the first like few words.
Right.
So I'm like, dude, I got to think of a good hook. And like the first few words, I got to like catch his attention, right?
Yeah.
So I think of this hook. I write out this like long ass Instagram message. And it was basically like, hey, Keaton, this is who I am. This is me. This is what I do. This is what I'm currently doing in my job. I heard you were looking for this opportunity. I personally feel like I'd be a good fit for this. Like this is basically just telling him like I'm the guy you're looking for. And so he responded to my message, and I remember being up on top of a roof doing an inspection, and he messages me back, and he's like, let's talk, bro. I need to get a full-time guy over here. And then I remember thinking to myself, like, man, this may be the last roof I ever get on. And I was just like starting to get all excited, and I'm like, I got to play this cool, because it was crazy, that this guy even responded to me.
Yeah, sure.
I was like, damn, this is crazy. So I got to really think about this, like how I'm going to, what I'm going to say next and how I'm going to move on to an interview process. And so what he did was he's like, all right, bro, hit me up on Monday and then we'll talk. And so he gave it the weekend. It was like Friday or something. Gave it the weekend, and then Monday I hit him back up and I was like, hey bro, are you still wanting to do this? And he's like, yeah, come up to the house. And so I called in sick that day to work, and I had to bail on some appointments for, you know, my boss he like set me up with some roofing leads.
Yeah.
And I had to call in sick and like bail on those and then go up to Keaton's house. And I remember I go up there, and for some reason I was expecting there to be like a bunch of people with them or something. Mm-hmm. I knock on the door, and it's just him. And he's like, what's up, bro? Come on in. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. So I remember sitting down in his office face to face with him, and it was a very surreal moment. I was like, wow, this is like the most powerful, most successful person I'd met at the time. And it was like big for me to end up in front of him after just sending him a message on Instagram. And so he's like, all right, bro, I want you to film this call, and then after we're going to go outside and do some reels or whatever. I'm like, okay. I didn't know what I was doing. I barely had all the equipment that I needed. And he knew that, and he knew that I wasn't fully experienced either.
Yeah.
And I told him all that up front. I'm like, look, bro, like, I may not be the most experienced guy, but I have the vision for it, and I'm willing to learn and invest and do what it takes to get better. And I think he liked that about me, because I was just telling him straight up, like, I'm not going to try and pretend like I'm some professional. I'm like, dude, I'm just a kid like that has a camera, you know? And so he was willing to bet on me. But I think after the call, he's like, all right, let's go out and do some reels. And he had some stuff written down in his notepad that he wanted to talk about on camera and have me film it. And this is kind of his interview process. Yeah. And I think it was just to kind of see what I would say and how I would react.
Yeah, sure.
But he's like, all right, bro, set up the camera and I want you to ask me questions.
Okay. Interesting.
And I'm like, oh, dude, that's crazy. Like, I was super, super nervous and like started to get all hot and like sweaty. I'm like, dude, I don't know what to say. So he had his couple things written down he wanted to say, and he's like, all right, ask me any questions you want. And I just remember in that moment, I kind of blacked out, and I don't know what came over me. It felt like I snapped into like a flow state or something, and the questions just started coming out naturally.
Cool.
And I ended up bringing up some things, like I brought up like an Alan Watts quote or something, and come to find out he loves Alan Watts. Yeah. So instantly was a connection there. And then I asked him a couple really good, like solid questions that he actually gave me super good answers for. And not only that, but this wasn't anything that he had written down. So it was all organic. It was all natural in the way that it happened. And I remember after I asked him the questions, he asked me something, and I ended up telling him the story about how I manifested meeting him. The story of when I was driving in a truck and I looked up and saw his house and was like, I want to be up there one day, or I want to meet this guy. Yeah. And 2 to 3 weeks later, I was face to face with him, telling him the story about how I manifested this. And I've got it on video. And you can see, I remember taking it home, and he never said like, hey, you're hired, this or that. I remember taking the video home, and then I had to go to work the next day. Or no, he's like, yeah, go make some reels out of that. So I called in the next 3 days straight to work because I didn't know what I was doing or how to even edit these videos. So
you didn't know how to use Premiere at this point?
I knew how to use Premiere, but I didn't know how to make the exact specific thing. I didn't know how to do captions. I didn't know how to color or audio or any of that stuff. So he's like, all right, go make me some videos. So I went home, YouTube searched everything, how to do this and that. Stayed up for like 2 days straight, dude, editing these videos. And I remember going back to work the next day. I had actually sent him the videos, and he still didn't tell me if I was hired. So I sent him the videos, and then he didn't say, oh, good job, or hey, I liked it or anything. He just posted one.
Okay.
He posted one. And I'm like, oh, sick. He must like it if he posted it. And so I go to work, and I'm all excited. I'm like, dude, like he posted my stuff. I'm good. And then I'm just going to, show up to the meeting at the sales meeting with the owner of the roofing company. And at the end of the meeting, he pulls me aside, and he's like, hey, bro, you kind of left us hanging at a very important time, and like we really needed you, and you bailed on us. And he's like, I'm going to have to let you go.
Wow.
And it was a super crazy moment because I didn't even know if I was hired or not.
Yeah.
Not only that, the work truck they had given me was my only means of transportation
shit.
at the time. And so I'm like, dude, this is crazy. So I had to come clean and tell the owner, like, sorry, bro, I got this opportunity potentially to work for this person. And I told him who it was. I was like, it's the muscle, it's Keaton.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, that's pretty cool. That's crazy. And then he was super cool about it, gave me a ride home and whatnot. Still fired me. Gave me a ride home, and it was super cool. But then Keaton ended up offering me a full-time position. And after that, I turned in my work truck. And once I got hired with Keaton, I was like, dude, I have to be able to make it to this guy's house to get the content because that's now my only job.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a running vehicle at the time. I had my van, but it was broke down. So what I did was I turned in the work truck, sold my van, and then used the cash from my van and went and put a down payment on a new truck, which allowed me to get up to Keaton's house for the first time. So it's a long story, but
Yeah, no,
that's how it.
Awesome.
That's how it unfolded.
Were you aware of the law of attraction? Was it something you were trying to practice in your life before this point?
Yeah. So I was aware of manifestation. I was aware of law of attraction, and I feel like I'd had it happen subtly in my life or over a long period of time where it's like, I didn't really notice it.
Yeah.
But this was the first time that I manifested something that was crystal clear as day.
Yeah.
It was like, boom, the realest feeling that I've ever had, the realest thing I've ever had happen to me. And from that moment, I was like, dude, if I can make this happen, what else can I make happen? You know?
It was like very clear magic that the universe was delivering to you.
Yeah, and I'd almost get uncomfortable telling that story to some people because they just don't understand it. And it's like they look at me like I'm crazy or something.
It's interesting when you talk to people that don't believe in that type of shit. And it's, you know, because it's, you do sound crazy if they haven't experienced it. Like there's no other way really to believe in the law of attraction other than, at least for me, just getting to the point where you want a different life so badly that you're willing to try something even that maybe sounds a little bit crazy, like the law of attraction. I mean, that's what it was for me, really, because like, you know, my fiance was the first one that introduced me to the law of attraction. Like, I don't know, 2016, 2017. And I used to always tease her about it, you know, because I thought it was kind of just crazy. And at that time though, we had started a few of our own companies, and I was so focused on getting rich that at some point I was like willing to just try anything, fucking anything.
Yeah.
And I remember like the first time I made a vision board. And like I was like, okay, I'm really gonna give this a go because we were struggling in our businesses. You know, I was making a couple grand a month, barely getting by, and I was like, I'm done doing this. Like I want to make 10 grand a month. You know? Like, and that to me at the time was like a lot. You know, that would have been like a huge step up. And I remember I made my vision board like towards the end of the year, and I was like, I want to manifest. I want to use this law of attraction that people tell me about to make $10,000 a month, get myself a KTM dirt bike, and I think there was like a few other small things on my vision board.
Yeah.
By the end of that year, I had gotten to the point where I was making over $10,000 a month. I had the exact same dirt bike that I had put on my vision board. And at that point I was like, oh fuck, this is real.
Yeah.
This actually really works. Like, and it came like so quickly in a way that like I couldn't really deny. I had leveled up like so much quicker than I had previously in my life that I was like, okay, I'm fucking in.
Yep.
I'm fucking in. And that really, honestly, is kind of what started me on more of like a spiritual journey of like understanding that like the universe actually is magic.
Yeah.
Right? It's really is magic. And then like going down that road of like understanding energy and how things really work and how we can be magnets if we want to. And yeah, it's been a special journey for me too. But it's so cool when you get those like very clear, like it's like the universe is like, I am magic, bitch.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
Right. And when you talk to other people that don't get it,
No.
and it's like, well, yeah, okay, well, you can get what you want if you work hard enough and do this. And it's like, no, it's not really how it works.
But that's not accounting for the miracle side of it.
Right.
Like the miracles that happen. Because like you can't work everything into existence. But some of the stuff that like the way that like Keaton responded, inviting me to his house, all that was a miracle.
For sure.
Like there was thousands of kids that reached out for that, and he even told me, he's like, dude, I've had like grown men, like older men that are like college degrees and all these certifications or whatever, and I'm choosing you because I want a younger guy for the job. So like that in my eyes was like a miracle. And when you talk about manifesting, and I believe in miracles because I've seen them happen right before my eyes. And if you don't necessarily believe in that, it's hard to wrap your mind around the fact.
If you haven't experienced it.
Exactly.
Right? It's not even just about believing it, because people can believe it, but if they don't get evidence of it at some point in their lives, it's hard to keep believing. Mm-hmm. You know, but what I have also seen is like almost anyone that puts in that tries the law of attraction, it works at the beginning really well.
Right.
You know, like in the book The Alchemist that we read as a men's group, he talks about beginner's luck. Mm-hmm. You know, and I've seen that like so clearly. It seems like when someone puts in like a little bit of intention into something that they're doing, the universe wants them to keep going, right? So it's gonna give them that initial smack to be like, hey, this is the way. Right? You know, even if then maybe down the road things get a little bit harder and you'll doubt it from time to time. And, you know, I've been through that whole phase too, because the first like 2 vision boards I put together, they manifested super easy. Yeah. And it was like very magical, and it was very like beginner's luck. And then I remember in like 2021, I put together a vision board that was like pretty crazy. Like huge level up. Like I was like, I really want to fucking step up. And I ended up not getting anything on that vision board. And that was kind of the beginning of like a dark time in my life.
Yeah.
Because I had so much evidence that this was real. And then, you know, I really tried to test it to see if it was really real, you know, because I you know, you get in that place where you doubt.
Yeah.
And ended up not getting anything on my vision board by the end of the year. And I was like, maybe this is all fucking bullshit, you know? And I feel like I had to go through that as well, you know, because I think a lot of times God wants to test our belief in the universe, you know, and maybe take us through a time. I also think part of it for me was like, and I think this, I'm not 100% convinced of this, but I think when you ask for a really, really big level up, you have to experience a lot of darkness. You have to like really grow. Because I believe like you can ask for something and it will come to you magically, but God is still going to take you through the process that you need to go through to get there. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I think like the bigger your manifestations, like the more you're asking for, the longer it's going to take, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because it almost seems like you throw the energy out there, and it takes a while for things to align for that reality to happen.
Yeah, especially if you're asking for a huge shift.
Right.
Yeah, I think it can definitely take some time, and it can definitely, you know, I think the universe can move very quickly, but you still have to go through that process of becoming the person that can attract those things.
Yeah.
You know, and I almost feel like it's like, hey, this is what I want, and the universe goes, okay, giddy up.
Yep.
Strap in, because I'm going to take you through this process, and it's probably going to be faster than you are going to be comfortable with, because I really need you to become this person before you can have these things. And sometimes that does take time. In my case, you know, especially like the past 2 years, because it was really like about 3 years ago, I really like asked for way more in life. And then sure enough, the universe takes me into like this deep hole of like really stripping away my identity in so many ways, because it knew that I had to make space to become a completely different person to receive these things that I was asking for.
Yeah. It's crazy how it works that way, because when 5 years ago, everything that I told myself that I wanted, I now have. Every single thing: the truck, the dirt bike, my own place, guns, my dog, nice computer, nice camera, nice editing setup, like all that stuff. I dreamed of having that stuff. And in the moment, you think that it's not working, like it's not coming to me, like things aren't happening. But then 5 years later, like it takes a long time, because now it's 5 years later and I have every single thing that I wanted 5 years ago, and then some. And not only that, I've experienced things and learned things I never even thought were possible. But it's just because I held in there and maintained that belief and didn't give up hope when it was hard and things, and you're in that dark night and you want to lose hope, right? You think that this manifesting thing, because realistically, when I was going through a lot of these hard times, at first, when I came into that, I had a victim mindset. I thought everything was happening to me.
Yeah.
And once I shifted my mind and started to look at it like everything's happening for me, then everything started to make way more sense. The manifestations started to happen. They started to be clear as day, and there was no denying it after that.
Which is so interesting. When you look backwards at your life, it's pretty easy to see that things happen for you.
Yeah.
But then it's like when you're in it, we lose that perspective. Right? Because, I think our vision just gets kind of clouded and we can't really see through the illusion when we're in it. And, that's the test that the universe gives you to find out if you really want what you're asking for, because I do believe, like, most people give up.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have a little bit of beginner's luck and get things a little bit easy so that they can have the evidence that they need to push a little bit. But for like a huge level up, for you to like really get the full life that you want, to like really step into your purpose, I believe that pretty much every person that is really asking for something big, for something extraordinary, they have to go through that test. And a lot of people give up. And I think a lot of people give up like right before they're about to manifest it.
For sure.
Which sucks.
Yeah.
And I think if you can have that mindset, which is really cool that, like you say that, like everything's happening for you. And if you can keep that mindset while you're in it and understand that even if you're going through hard times right now, they're turning you into the person that you need to become. And you're going to be so fucking grateful that you went through that hard shit, because the person on the other side of that is an expanded soul that is capable of so much more.
Yep. Yeah. And it's like at this point, and it took me the last 3 years to really learn this pattern, but it was like I would desire something. I'd want to, I'd imagine where I wanted my life to be, or things that I wanted to come into my life, and then things would get really freaking hard. It would get dark and lonely and scary, and it felt like you're on a roller coaster that was never ending. And then all of a sudden you'd get your blessings, and everything would change. And then you're riding on top of the world for a bit, and then you ask for the next level, and then things get hard again, and then it gets easy again, then gets hard again, then gets easy, and all this time you're leveling up, getting smarter, better, and learning lessons, and things are coming into your life that way. But even then, after going through that pattern so many times and being aware of it now, aware of that when it's hard and things suck and it's like you feel like giving up or you have no hope, reminding yourself that this is just part of the pattern. That's been a huge thing for me, even though I still struggle, man.
Right.
When you're in those hard times, it's a different story than when you come out of them on the other side. It's a whole different story, because when you're in it, man, it feels like you're not making it out,
Yeah, because I think we always get pushed beyond what we think we can handle.
Yeah.
Right? Because the person that exists now thinks that I can handle so much. I'm putting those limits on myself. And so the universe goes, okay, you want to be someone more than you are now, then I have to push you past those limits.
Yep.
And it's going to be more uncomfortable than you want it to be. It's going to feel like it's more than you can handle, because I'm expanding you.
Yeah.
And I need you to become expanded for you to receive the things that I want to give you. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, because one thing that's really helped me shift my perspective just over the past couple of weeks, since we had our men's retreat out in the desert, and we had just the coolest fucking night.
Yeah.
And so many guys were just like so tapped in and so online, really all of us. And Dustin said, your soul came down here to experience limitations.
Yeah.
Because it loves breaking through them. Right? And I've been thinking about
That's
that a
awesome.
lot, because you think about that process of as you're breaking through one of your limitations, you're past your breaking point.
Yeah.
Right? And your ego fucking hates it.
Yep.
Right? But your soul loves it. So I've tried to like realign when I'm going through something difficult and I'm like, when is this going to fucking end? Why hasn't my time come for this? You know, and then I try and shift and go, my soul loves this.
Yeah.
My ego's hating it because my ego has to be stripped away, because my ego is not me. And this ego that currently exists is not going to get me where I need to go, where I desire to go. But my soul is loving breaking past this limitation, and then try and almost like realign myself to where I'm like, let me see this from my soul's perspective, because my soul is jumping for joy as my ego is just like, fuck.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's crazy. That reminds me of David Goggins. Yeah, dude.
So tell me this, what's your favorite thing about working for Keaton? What's the coolest part?
The coolest part, man, there's a lot of cool parts about working for Keaton. And there's a lot of not so cool parts.
Yeah.
It's just, it's extreme. It's extreme in the highs and the lows. It's very extreme. Sure. And so being in that extreme environment is very intense. And it causes me to freaking go through a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that I've liked about working for Keaton is the amount of freaking growth that I've gone through in my life just from being in the environment, just as default, just from listening, talking to people, meeting people, getting these experiences, all these different aspects. It's expanded my mind in ways that I'd never thought possible. And like, it's kind of funny because I don't feel like I'm 24. I don't feel like everybody.
You don't act like you're 24 either.
All these people, all these successful gurus and entrepreneurs and stuff that were around, they look at me like I'm just a kid. And I'm mostly listening, right? So they don't get much chance to hear who I am like you do, and like how I open up to some of the other people. Because when I'm around a lot of these people, I'm listening mostly, and I just keep my mouth shut most of the time, which is a good thing because I'm able to learn and whatnot. But a lot of these people, they kind of underestimate me a little because they look at me and they think I'm a kid. Well, because I am. I look like a kid. I am a kid, right?
Yeah, sure.
But what they don't know is who I am. And feels like I'm not 24 years old mentally. Feels like I'm a lot older than that. So when I talk to these people and connect with them, they instantly see it. As soon as I start talking to them, they see it in my eyes. They can tell in my body language, my demeanor. They're like, okay, he's not just some dumb kid. Right. Not only that, but they see the opportunity that I'm in with Keaton, and that gives me a lot of credibility too. Because like, okay, if this kid got himself in this room, he must have something about him, right, that sticks out from a lot of other kids. And so my favorite thing about working for Keaton has been, the growth that it's brought me, but also, a lot of these people that I've gotten to meet has just been life-changing. And then also getting closer to the family and getting closer to you and Keaton and Maddie and the kids and Uncle Bart and Uncle Bruce and everybody, because in the last few years living out here, I don't have my family living here and I don't have many friends. So it's been really lonely. So that was another big thing I really like about working for Keaton is it's kind of become like a second family now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're one of the brothers now.
Yeah.
If you had to sum up, obviously Keaton is one of a kind. Like he's a very, very unique person. He's a very fucking powerful person. If you had to sum up the biggest thing that you have learned from him by just being around him, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a hard one, bro, because there's so many things. Let me think about that for a second. He teaches a lot of principles that they're ingrained in my brain,
Yeah.
but on the spot, it's kind of hard to bring them up. But being in Limitless and being on the calls every week, I learned so freaking much.
Yeah.
And so I've learned, instead of naming specific lessons, I'll just name areas of my life that it's changed. So my relationships, for one, has been a huge impact on my relationships. How I interact with people, how I communicate with people has been huge. How I carry myself and believe in myself, and have almost a delusion about my own success and capabilities. Discovering my true potential has probably been a huge thing I've learned from him. Is just becoming, like, his whole thing is limitless, living limitlessly, and actually learning what that means to live limitlessly. That's something that I was already kind of doing, and I feel like that's part of the reason Keaton and I connect so well is because we have a similar mindset. Where when I was doing the door-to-door thing, I kind of liked that lifestyle, like not having to follow all the freaking rules and do all of the things that everyone else is doing. I never liked following everyone else and what they were doing.
Yeah.
So Keaton and I have a huge thing in common, in the sense that we like to carve our own path. And so seeing how Keaton has carved his own path, and then seeing how I've kind of carved my path and how our paths have met, it was really crazy. But not only that, it taught me that I can literally do anything. That's probably the biggest thing that I've learned from him. But there's a whole laundry list of lessons that I've learned from Keaton, that and a lot of the stuff that I've learned, I'm fortunate enough to have recorded a lot of it. So recording it and then going home and editing it, and listening to it 100 times.
Yeah. Really ingrains it in you.
Really ingrains it in you, and then you be through that. I'm not only seeing a lot of growth in my videos, but the videos that I'm editing, I'm also learning, which has caused me to see even more growth.
Yeah.
So that combination in a short period of time made a lot of results.
Yeah, it's completely changed you as a person.
Completely.
And I love that he calls it Limitless Society, because, Keaton really does embody being limitless.
Yeah.
Because you look at so many things that he does, and I know him so well. I know him better than most people because I've been with him my whole life, right? And there's still so many times when he's trying to do something, and I'm just like, how do you think this is gonna work? How are you gonna do this?
Yeah.
And then he does it, and he's just like, holy fuck, he fucking did it.
Yeah.
He constantly does that over and over and over again. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a fucking huge lesson, to be around someone that can really embody being limitless, and really just not being scared of anything. Have you ever seen Keaton be scared of anything? Because I haven't.
Even in the time when he is scared, he won't let you know that he's scared. He'll pretend that he's not. So no, I haven't seen him scared.
Which is admirable in its own way. Like, and the way I see him push through his limits, like, he really does embody that spirit of being limitless. So I love that name for the group. So yeah, that's amazing, man. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. Your growth has been super fucking inspirational.
Thank you.
To watch. You've completely changed in so many ways. I've watched you work through some deep, dark emotions, and I feel privileged to be there and be one of the guides for you. You've also guided me in so many ways with our deep talks, and yeah, dude. So it's been amazing to watch you. Appreciate you coming on. I do want to ask you one last question before we close here.
Okay.
What do you think about aliens?
Aliens. They're real. I don't think they're real. I know they're real. Aliens, to me, man, there's a lot of different theories I believe in, or at least entertain, but I think aliens can be considered angels.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that, my whole life I've been told, like, oh, your angels are looking over you, right? But in my mind, I imagine, like, a pretty girl in a white dress with the thing of the halo or whatever. She's got wings and she's flying. She's an angel. But I think that could be an alien too.
Yeah.
I think the aliens could be the angels that are like watching over us.
I actually fully agree with you on that.
Yeah.
From what I've learned over the past while, it seems like, there are beings in another dimension that are here that are in some sense playing this game with us.
Yeah.
Right. And they have a very specific purpose, and there's beings. I do believe there's mostly beings that want to help us. But I also do believe that there are beings that have an agenda that goes contrary to what we want.
Yeah.
And you could call those angels and demons. I also believe, like, on a higher sense, they work together in some sense also, because the resistance is what makes this game a game, right? And so I do believe they work together on some sense, but also, yeah, I think that you have guides that are your angels, that possibly are just beings from another star system or another time, or just exist within another dimension, that their game is to help us from the other side.
Yeah.
Right? Now, we did have somewhat of an experience.
Yeah.
This was your first experience with aliens?
Yeah, it was my first.
Tell us what you experienced on our men's retreat that we just did, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. So, first off, I have no idea where you got that app or who created that or like what kind of technology that is. But we're chilling by the campfire, and you had just gotten done giving your speech on, closing out the 90-day challenge we did, and we were all kind of having a moment at the fire. And then I don't know who said, I think it was you. You're like, hey, we should try and call the aliens in. And then we all start laughing like, yeah, whatever, bro. And then you're like, all right, yeah, let's call them in. So you pull out your phone, you start playing this app. It's playing this crazy sound, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
it's the CE5 app for anyone that's interested.
All right,
CE5
cool. I'm going to have to write that down.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to call him back, dude.
We're gonna try it again.
We're going to have to try it again, bro, because you started turning on this app that started making this noise, and the way you explained it was it's playing a certain frequency that they can hear.
Right. To help locate us.
Right? And so we're a group of men out in the desert, not many people around. I mean, it was late at night. Anyone else that was camping around us was probably sleeping.
We're all having the fucking time of our lives.
Yeah,
we're all very aligned,
right,
in tune. Yeah.
Right. And it was just the everything that led up to that moment before you wanted to call the aliens was just, it felt like it was like everything was just falling into place.
Yeah, it was like magic.
Yeah, it was like magic.
We'd had a magical night.
The way that we found that campsite, all the way up to the time when you're like, let's call in the aliens.
Yeah.
It was all magic. And then even after you said that, that's when the real magic started happening. Because in my personal experience, you started playing it. And then at first, bro, you know what was crazy is my very first thought was I got scared.
Yeah.
And you know why I got scared? Because all of a sudden I felt this super real feeling that they were actually going to show up.
Yeah.
Like this very, very, very real feeling. Mm-hmm. And that kind of made me scared because I was like, oh, I had to ask myself, am I actually ready to meet the aliens? Bro, like this is, because I got a feeling that they're coming, bro. Like the way that you started playing this thing, you got Dustin in the back talking, and he's like, yeah, you open up the realm and then they can hear you from another dimension, and then they start popping in. And I'm just like, whoa, dude, this is kind of scary. And so I was like, let's just relax. Let's just enjoy this. Let's not get too anxious. And the moment I started to like relax and like open up my heart, and then all of a sudden I'm looking up at the stars, and we've got the whole galaxy just freaking bright as the city lights at night. And I remember I started to relax, And
this app takes us through these frequencies meditation for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it took us through a 20-minute meditation to just align ourselves.
Right. Okay. So I remember that now. So we did the thing. And before we started the meditation, I remember seeing something, or actually, I seen what looked like a shooting star first. I saw that first, and I was like, whoa, that was crazy. But, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I saw another one, and I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then we're just relaxing, listening to the frequency. It's playing. And then all of a sudden, I heard a very distinct noise that I had never heard in my freaking life. And it sounded like it was right up on the hill that was right next to our camp. It was just like a weird noise, like, "Lee," or something. I don't know, bro. It was weird. And I wasn't the only one that heard it. I look over, and everyone heard it. And then all of a sudden, it was like 50 feet away, and then it was 15 feet away in like that. And it made one more sound. And I was like, holy shit. Like it felt like an alien was walking up to us, bro. Which could have been, bro.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I wasn't the only one that heard this sound. Mm-hmm. After that, it went away and we never heard it again or anything. But then once the meditation started and he started guiding us through, I started to look up at the stars, and it almost looked like someone was shining a flashlight on the galaxy. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Did you see it that way too?
The thing that I noticed was like we looked up at the stars, and the stars looked cool.
Yeah.
Because we were in the desert. But I noticed after we went through the meditation, I looked up and it was completely different. Almost like we had like taken some sort of like sheath off.
Yeah.
And there was so much more light, and it was like we could see way more stars, we could see way more light. It was like it was almost like we were seeing things from a different perspective.
Yeah, it was like we were close, like the galaxy was closer to us, and we could see the Milky Way, and it was all like lit up and like bronze colored, I remember. And there's all these different colors, and then I started seeing what looked like stars, right? But then they were moving weird, bro. Like I saw one, I remember fixating on it, and I was sitting next to Mason, and I was like, dude, look at that. And we were watching this one star go zigzag like this, back and forth, and then it was gone in a snap. And then we saw some more crazy stuff, and that kind of wrapped it up. But I don't know, actually, after I saw that, then you know how a couple minutes before then, the galaxy seemed crystal clear, right? Yeah. Like we're looking at it crystal clear. It was the clearest I'd ever seen it in my life. And then 5 minutes later, it looked like when you have like a eye booger and it gets blurry, your eyes just start, or like if you poke your eye right here, it gets like blurry. It looked like the galaxy was getting blurry all of a sudden. And I remember the galaxy being blurry, you couldn't really focus in on the stars like you could before. And then all of a sudden it was back to normal. Or no. All of a sudden the clouds rolled in and you couldn't see it at all anymore. Yeah. It was just gone. But in that moment, it went from crystal clear to blurry to the clouds rolled in, and then that was it. And that was my experience.
And how did you feel?
I felt, and I didn't close my eyes because what I was seeing in the sky was so mesmerizing that I just didn't even think to close my eyes. But then Dustin and Zach closed their eyes, and they said they could see things. But I just felt like a strong presence.
Yeah.
I felt a strong presence, like we were definitely close to some sort of consciousness that I am not quite aware of what it is. But it just felt like, when you feel like somebody's watching you, it almost kind of felt like that. But not in a scary, anxious way, though. It was almost like a calm, like almost like somebody was watching over you. Yeah. And it was almost like a peaceful,
friendly feeling.
It was a peaceful, happy feeling that overcame my whole body. And I just was so relaxed in the chair. And then had those visions of what I saw in the sky and everything like that. But I was feeling that the whole time. Yeah. And that overall experience ever since then, I definitely feel like we got close or communicated or at least attempted to communicate with ETs. And I feel like in some way or another, we may have gotten visited by them at some point. Because I felt something that was so real that there was...
And we all had such a similar experience. It's not like, maybe we were just in the moment and we were just having such a good night that we wanted to believe that we would have this magical experience. But we also we all experienced something so similar, because I remember like we went through that meditation, right? And so we're 20 minutes, and at this point we've just been sitting there pretty silently for 30 minutes, just trying to bring these ETs in. And then if you remember at the end of the meditation, I said, "Okay, Dustin, take your awareness out into space and help them locate us, bring them in."
Yeah, I remember that.
And, Dustin is so gifted with his awareness.
Yeah.
He has some sort of like special thing where he can shift his awareness into like other beings.
Yeah.
Right. And he was telling us about it earlier in the night. And so I said, go up to their ship and bring them in and show them where they are. So he closes his eyes and he's like, okay, I'm bringing them in. They're coming. They're on their way.
And I remember that.
And then all of a sudden, he'd been doing it for a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden he goes, "They're here."
Yeah.
And
I
Zach
remember
was
that.
like, "They're here." And we all felt the same thing.
dude.
It was like all of a sudden that presence was there.
Yeah. The second that he said they're here, I remember that moment very vividly because the hair on the back of my ears stood up, bro. The presence of what we were feeling was so freaking real that when he said they're here, you could feel it.
Yeah.
Like they were there, bro.
I could feel it. And then I remember like looking up, and it was kind of like what you were just explaining, where it was like all of a sudden I felt like there was like multiple like smaller ships that had a camouflage, but then I also felt like there was like a big ship that like came in above us. And because like I was looking up, and it was kind of like blurry, like you're saying, like you couldn't. It was almost like you were looking at the sky through water.
Yeah,
Right. And then I was like, oh, they're here.
Yeah,
and we all felt the same thing. Maybe we're just a bunch of crazy bastards. But either way, it was a really cool experience, and I will say we're gonna have many more nights like that because we have such a fucking good group of guys in our men's group, and I will definitely not rest until we have an ET walk up to our camp and talk to us.
For sure, bro. Nah, I was surprised that one didn't.
Yeah, I know.
After feeling what I felt and seeing what we saw, I thought it was any minute then that an alien was just gonna walk up and be like, "Come in peace, yo, what's up?" Because I also remember like when you were calling them in, you were like talking to them.
Yeah.
And I remember your voice.
Yeah, I was.
You're like, "We come in peace. We just want to have an experience." And then when you told Dustin to start talking to him, and then he said they're here, it felt like a dream. In the moment, it felt so real. But then I went to bed and woke up the next day, and even now, from the next day till now, 2 weeks later, it's kind of foggy.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah, for sure.
And then the next day, somebody said, "What if they did visit us and then they just wiped our memory?" And I started to really trip out on that. I was like, "Oh, dude, what if they actually did?" Because it makes perfect sense why it would be foggy. And
sure.
if they're conscious beings and they have something
They
to
could have
say,
come down, walked up to our camp, asked us a bunch of questions because they're doing their own research with us.
right?
And then zapped us, and then been like, we're going to zap them just enough that they have some sort of an experience, but they don't really remember exactly what happened because it's a little too crazy for their minds to be able to comprehend.
Yep. And I wouldn't put, like, I actually like to entertain that thought, and I wouldn't put it past that fact that just the fact that it was so clear in the moment, and the next day it was so foggy.
Mm-hmm.
So foggy.
Yeah.
And even thinking about it now, it's foggy.
For sure. But it definitely was an amazing experience either way. Whether it was real or not, it felt very real to us.
Yeah.
And we all had such a similar experience that, I also think it would be much crazier to say that there aren't a bunch of beings here that are watching us and can give us little signs that they're there.
Right.
Right?
My experience of that was almost a feeling like when I felt their presence, it was almost a welcoming feeling, like you said, but it was almost like they've always been there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't ready to know that until that moment. That moment, we were all ready to know like that. And I know that Dustin and you maybe have had past experiences, but for me at least, having that happen, it was almost like they were waiting for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you said that somebody was like, they're waiting for us to align in that. Like, and I don't know if it was all of us coming together. I don't know if it had something to do with our campsite, with the way that it was so magical, how we found that place and how cool it was, the way that everything happened. It almost felt like, you know, like they came in and gave us a big old hug and they're like, we're glad to see you. Like we've been waiting for this.
Yeah, that's how I felt for sure too.
Yeah, and that's overall my whole experience about that. It was very real and it was life-changing, and I still feel it today. And since then, my perspective on life has changed, and I've made lots of changes just in the last 2 weeks in my own life that are just internal feelings that have been calling me. And it feels like it's the angels, you know, speaking to me and telling me where I should go and what I should do.
Yeah, and it's cool because like we woke up the next day, and there were a few men in the group, but you specifically, you even looked like a different person. Like I could feel like this huge shift in you that had happened.
Zach
overnight.
said you could look at my face, bro.
Yeah,
and I felt like a new person.
Yeah, which I think speaks to, you know, what we're doing as a men's group.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you've been a part of the men's group now for almost a year.
Yeah.
And how has that been for you? For me, it's been completely life-changing.
It took a while for me, and just from the group, not our one-on-one coaching, it took a while for me to see the true benefit of it. I almost had to go through it for a while and then really think about it. And then also throughout the year of getting closer with the guys, and then having that retreat was like a cherry on top. And then also getting to know the guys on such a better level, and everybody's comfortable with opening up and getting more vulnerable than we normally would on a call or a guys' night.
Yeah.
We were all very connected. And on top of that, all of the one-on-one coaching calls that you did with me throughout the year, and all the ways that you've helped me personally, I think it's been a huge shift in my life. Have men to turn to, not being so lonely, feeling like, you know, knowing that you're not alone in a lot of these struggles and a lot of these journeys. And it's crazy when you compare how similar a lot of our journeys are,
Right.
that you feel like you're so alone because your journey is the way it is. But then you come and connect with the group and open up to them, and you realize you've gone through the same thing. Uncle Bruce has gone through the same thing, except worse. You know, all these guys have gone through, it's a similar story, but it's different every time. But being able to connect to those guys, it's been life-changing. And I think that I didn't see the true value of it coming in, but it took some time for me to be indulged in the group and actually show up and be a part of it. That's when I started seeing major changes. And then also like having you let me speak on the calls and stuff, like that all brought me a ton of growth.
Yeah, dude,
overall.
and it's interesting because, you know, I tell this to a lot of people that I see that are pushers, right?
Yeah.
Not a big percentage of men are pushers. I would say maybe 5%. You're one of them, right? And it's also like when you're a pusher, you have a hard time seeing your own progress because you want to progress so quickly that you're just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And a lot of times you don't take the time to celebrate the small wins because they're not enough for you, because you're meant to do big things. And so if you're a pusher, it can be difficult to see progress in a short amount of time, even though it's happening. But, you know, when you have good guys around you that can help you see that, you know, and like for you, like, dude, the transformation that you've made over the past year has been fucking incredible and incredibly inspiring for me, that I wish I had started doing this type of shit when I was your age, because now at 33, I'd be way ahead of where I'm at. And I'm very happy with my life.
Right.
You know, I've been a pusher myself, but I really started pushing not that long ago. And super grateful that I did. But, you know, it's super cool just to be surrounded by other men that want to come together and help you feel like you're not alone. But also it's not a group where we just get together, drink a bunch of beers, and complain about our lives.
Right.
right? It's men that are coming together with the intention of how do we make our lives better?
Yeah.
And also where are we at? How can we help fix how can we help fix this? And also be seen for the weight that we're carrying at the same time, right? Because I think there's a balance with all of that, right? And you don't get together with our group and just complain about your life.
No.
You get together with our group and you talk about what you're experiencing, and another man can say, I see you, bro, and I've felt similar.
Yeah.
And this is what we're going to do to make our lives progress, and we're going to fucking do it together because we're more powerful together.
Yeah. And that's a huge part of the group. And then, another thing that's helped me as just a creator in this group is like when I started, I was by myself, right? And like I didn't really have much people I could reach out and get like feedback or advice on. And so a lot of times I'd be overthinking my own art or my own work and thinking that it's not good or overthinking it basically. And then getting your guys' perspectives and it almost helps me validate myself more just from a simple reminder of my potential. Like you guys remind me of who I am. And like when I'm by myself for a long period of time, I kind of forget who I am. I lose touch because it's just you and your thoughts, right? And so that has been another big thing is just being around the guys like you and Cody and Uncle Bruce and Uncle Bart and everybody that sees me doing this stuff with Keaton. And most people wouldn't really understand what it's like, but you guys are kind of behind the scenes and you guys have an understanding of what it's like. And then also I'm able to open up to you guys and be more vulnerable. And man, that's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare to have. And I'm super, super grateful to have that and to have you and to be in this group and be connected with all these other men. It's a blessing.
It's special. What we have as a group is very special, and I really believe this is just the very beginning for us. It's been cool to see us all come together and recognize each other, right? Because I see someone like you, and I'm like, bro, I know who you are.
Yeah.
Right? I know who you are. I see your fucking full potential, and I know where you're going.
Yeah.
And, to have a guy at your back that sees you in that way, I think is just such a good way to propel you forward into that potential when sometimes we lose touch with our own potential and we get caught up in our own heads and our own negative thinking. And sometimes you just need a brother there by your side to remind you who the fuck you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, man, you've done that for me so much. And I want to say thank you again for all the continued support that you showed me. And you helped me through, like, we've gotten on calls where I was at some pretty low times and I didn't want to talk to anyone else, or I didn't feel like I could really open up to many other people. And you're kind of in the inside and you're able to give me a perspective because you understand, like you said, you understand me and my true potential. So you're able to give me advice that a lot of other people wouldn't be able to give me because they just don't understand me on that type of level.
Yeah.
Right. And man, that's been a huge, huge part of my journey the last year. Is if it wasn't for some of the calls and meetings that you've done for me, who knows, bro?
Yeah.
Like, I probably would have quit the group or would have quit this or quit that, or who knows where I'd be,
right.
But you helped me through that. And then in return, I didn't even realize, but I was actually able to help you in some ways, which makes me feel good too. And so the fact that we're able to have a mutually beneficial relationship, we see each other and we're able to benefit each other and bring value to each other's lives, like, that's awesome. Yeah,
special, man. And it's been a fucking honor. It's really been an honor to get to know you, even though I'm pretty convinced we've known each other for many lifetimes.
Yeah.
I've told you multiple times, I think you're a pretty old soul.
Yeah,
you came here for a pretty deep experience. You've done this more than a few times. And so, yeah, it's been a fucking honor, man. And appreciate you coming on the show. Fucking love you, bro.
Yeah,
and
I'm
super
too,
fucking excited for what we're going to do in the future because the possibilities are endless. And I think we're all meant for big shit.
Yeah, bro. Thanks for having me. It's been a blast. And I cannot wait to see what's going to come. What's to come next.
What's to come next? Here we go. We'll find out.
Heck yeah,
all right.
bro.
Thanks, brother.
You bet.
Well, thanks for listening to this episode with my boy Chandler. It was a good one. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.